Hey everybody, welcome to Booking It. I'm Cooper, and today we have a very special treat for you guys. We have an impromptu debate recorded over the topic, is Hector likable? So we're just going to be debating that. Isaiah and I will be for the affirmative. Bryson and Tanner will be for the negative side. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So, you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Today, my good friend Isaiah Redsky and I affirmed the resolution, Hector is likable. To that end, we have two arguments. First, we'd like to establish a framework for what makes a character likable. And secondly, we'll be examining why Hector fulfills that standard, that criterion, and is thus likable. So firstly, what is the framework for calling a character likable? I argue that a character is sympathetic, we can care for him, we can understand and relate to his actions. This is important because we're not saying that Hector is perfect, or that he does not make mistakes. In fact, I would argue someone making a relatable mistake is actually more sympathetic than someone who is perfect all the time, or is a goody two-shoes. Just take Jane Eyre. We meet the character Helen, and she is very annoying to me because she is perfect in every single way, there's no fault in her, and thus I fail to relate to her. But with other characters, we can see they're likable because we care for them and because we can relate to them in their imperfection and in the good deeds they do as well. That's the framework we establish. Moving on to number 2, what makes Hector fulfill that standard? To that end, we have 3 key arguments. Firstly, he does not fight for himself alone. Achilles' big fault is that he fights for personal kleos, for selfish glory. But Hector does not do so. He fights in defense of his city. He fights to defend the people he cares about and he loves. He does not fight for personal gain, for personal glory. He is solely motivated, or at least mainly motivated, to defend the people in his city as a prince, and not for his own personal glory. Secondly, he actually cares for his friends and for his family. This kind of ties in for the first point. The scene with his wife and his kid is very endearing, and this is the line 365 in my version of Book 6. For I am going first to my own house, so I can visit my own people, my beloved wife and my son who is little, since I do not know if ever again I shall come back this way. So he's very caring and loving towards his kids and towards his wife. And that scene with his wife and kid is the most endearing and beloved scene in the Iliad. He clearly cares for his friends and his family. People respect him, look up to him, and love him as well. But finally, he's not afraid to call out the sissies. When Paris is being a wimp, he tells them so. When everybody is acting all weird and wrong, he says, hey, this is what's right. We need to fight for our city. So because Hector is understandable, sympathetic, and we care for him, because he's not fighting for himself alone, he cares for friends and family, he's not afraid to call out sissies, we'd ask you to decide the affirmative. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Tanner, by the way. So, while Cooper has brought up some very compelling points for why Hector is likable, me and Bryson today stand resolved that Hector and negate the resolution that Hector is likable, therefore meaning Hector is unlikable. And we have 3 main points for this, but first I'd like to bring a point of clarification. First of all, likability is not based off of one's fame or glory, but rather upon the worthiness of the man. One can be friendly but unlikable, or weak and likable, but it is the true intentions and nature of a man that should dictate his likability. Hector is unlikable because while he is pleasant in his demeanor and his response to others, his intentions and the way that he lives his life is considered an unlikable manner and an unworthy manner to be able to live his life. And I'm going to be addressing this through 3 main contentions today. First of all, he sacrifices others. Second of all, he is prideful. And third of all, he is weak. Diving directly into my first point, which is that he sacrifices others. Examples of this can be found through Dolan the spy, who was a spy for the Trojans that he was willing to abandon and allow to be taken away. Another can be found through Sarpedon, who he also abandoned. And through these 2 points, you can see that Hector had no problem sacrificing others. And this is another display of how he is an unworthy man and therefore is unlikable for that reason, because worthiness is a direct correlation to likability. Second of all, he's also prideful. Hector takes a lot of pride in the strength of his city and the way that he is able to fight for it. And because of this, he has a great deal of pride. But in reality, he's not doing a whole lot. And that leads me to my third contention, which is that he is weak. Most of the gods in the story do all of the fighting for him. And he considers that he doesn't take this into account and considers it all to be his own glory and for himself. And so through this, we can see that Hector is truly a unworthy man and therefore unlikable. And my partner Bryson will be bringing up some contentions, some responses against the other team's plan later.
All right, that was a good speech, Tanner. We just have a couple of disagreements with it. So first off, you said that you pointed out the flaws in Hector. And we're not saying that he is perfect. We are just saying through his flaws and all this, we can see some good virtues that make him likable. And even though he isn't perfect, he still, most of the things he does isn't for himself. You pointed out that you said that it was a lot of self-centered pride, but it isn't. A lot of it is for his town and his city. And so you also pointed out the point about that spy, Dole, I think was his name. And you said that he just kind of sacrificed them. But Dole knew the risks. He knew that he was going to the other side to be a spy. And he agreed to it, to go and try and help his side win the war. Sadly, the outcome wasn't great, but it's war. It happens in war. He knew the risks. So in his previous speech, Cooper pointed out 3 points, and I'd like to rebring them up. So the first one was that he's not fighting for himself. And it's not for his personal kleos, but instead he's defending his town. So I have a quote from Homer saying, quote, I would die of shame to face the men of Troy and the Trojan women trailing their long robes if I would shrink from battle now, a coward, end quote. So he's basically saying that even if he were to basically run away or surrender, he would not be able to face his town. He's fighting for his town. His town would suffer if he were to surrender and give up the war. And then Cooper also brought up the point that he's not afraid to call out people, like when he called out Paris for basically being a sissy and a wimp and hiding around in his little tower. So I have a quote from him saying, quote, look, your people are dying around the city, the steep walls, dying in arms, the steep walls, dying in arms, and all for you, the battle. And all for you. The battle cries and the fighting flare up around the citadel. You'd be the first to lash out at another anywhere. You saw hanging back from this hateful war, end quote. So basically, he's telling Paris, all these people in your city are dying because of you, and you're doing absolutely nothing. You're just sitting around doing nothing. But it is because of you, and you should be here fighting to help protect your city, your people, your loved ones. So he's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for all the loved ones and all the people that were in the city that were innocent. And because the Chians attacked the Trojans because of that. So I just strongly encourage you to vote for the affirmative side because we're the correct side. Thank you.
I'm Bryson Boswick, and my partner and I, Tanner Lewis, firmly stand against the resolution that Hector is likable. The affirmative came up with three main things that they believed he was, which is he doesn't fight for himself, he cares for his friends and family, and he's not afraid to call out the sissies. He's not afraid to call out the people like Paris who aren't fighting and doing the work. Mainly, what I want to say is he does. I mean, who doesn't fight for? Who is fighting for themselves? Almost everyone in this war is fighting for themselves in some sort of glory. Hector, in many ways, you can say he's not fighting for himself. He's fighting for the city. But I would mainly say he is fighting. He's fighting for himself and for his own glory in many ways. He believes that he is the one doing this fighting, but in fact it is the gods that are fighting for him, mainly Apollo. They said that he also is he also I'm blanking. He also does not I completely lost it. He's willing to sacrifice men, but that's okay because he can do that, and that's that Dolan was willing to sacrifice himself, that he chose to make that decision, but also Hector had promised him glory. He had promised him many gifts. And just when he disappears, Hector doesn't do a single thing. He just lets him off the hook, and not lets him off the hook. He's dead. But he just completely forgets about him. Like, oh, well, I didn't really care about that guy. Then also Sarpedon, we have Glaucus, who comes up to Hector and says, I'm willing to pull out all of Lycia. I'm going to take out all of my men because you didn't go and save the body of Sarpedon, who stormed the rampart, who tore down the rampart, and completely turned the tide of the battle when you were gone, when you were hurt. And it was because of him that we are now winning the battle, but you didn't even care to get his body. You didn't even care to retrieve him, and so I'm leaving because of that. Hector is not likable because he sacrifices men, because he is prideful, because he is weak, and he allows the gods to do his fighting and can't fight for himself. I firmly support our resolution and vote for us, please, that Hector is not likable.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. We hope you enjoyed that debate. Isaiah, do you want to say something?
Send us an email or put a comment or something like that saying which side you'd vote for.
Who won? Who won the debate? Exactly. So, we'll see you guys next time, and enjoy this brief interlude of Tanner and I singing. Don't stop believing.
We're keeping this in.
Hold on to that feeling. Street lights somewhere in the night.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world.
The midnight train going anywhere. That's not.
Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit. For
a time they can share the night. It goes on and on and on and on. Street lights,
people, street lights.
'Cause you'll be in my heart, no matter where you go. Hello, my old heart, how have you been? Are you still there inside my chest? Been so worried, you've been so still, barely beaten at all. Oh, don't leave me here alone.